Disabled girl's life-changing moment. Billionaire dad sees waitress come to the rescue at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3, slicing through the stillness like a knife. Shadows clung to the corners of the diner, heavy with secrets. It was in this eerie quiet that everything changed. Madeline, a young girl in a wheelchair, clutched her blanket tighter, eyes wide. In her world, the mundane diner shimmered with brilliance. But tonight, it was different. The flickering neon sign cast a ghostly light, illuminating a figure huddled at the counter, a waitress named Lily. She had a spark in her eyes that hinted at trouble. Just outside, a blacked-out limousine idled, its engine rumbling like a storm brewing. Rumor had it that a billionaire was in town. Faces peered through the diner windows, whispers of who could it be, mixing with the sizzling of the grill. What did this night hold? The air crackled with tension. Lily, poor but resilient, carried the diner's spirit on her shoulders. But she felt it too. The air felt thick, a warning cry. As her gaze drifted toward Madeline, a sudden smash broke the spell. A diner booth shattered, sending glass flying. Gasps erupted from patrons. What was happening? Madeline's heart pounded. She could sense the fear throbbing from everyone around her, and her strong will rose within. Her friend, Lily, was struggling to diffuse the chaos. The hairs on the back of Madeline's neck stood up. She needed to act. She yearned for heroism, her dreams colliding with reality. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, a figure burst through the door, the unmistakable silhouette of the billionaire. Murmurs cascaded like waves through the diner. His gaze swept the room, landing on Madeline, now trembling in her chair. The atmosphere thickened as anticipation hung heavy. What did he see in her? Why did it matter? There was a moment, just a flicker, where time felt suspended. Madeline thought she might grasp something extraordinary. Did she dare? The truth hovered, but the questions lingered, alive and vibrant. Then, with a crash of thunder outside, the power flickered, plunging the diner into darkness. What awaited in the shadows? All eyes were on Madeline and Lily. Would they rise up? The mystery loomed larger, painting the night with uncertainty. The darkness was thick like a heavy fog, swallowing every glimmer of hope. Murmurs of panic swirled in the void, as the patrons clutched their plates and each other, their faces lit only by flashlights flickering into life. Madeline's heart raced. She could almost hear the thunder of her own pulse as she tried to navigate through the fear that enveloped her. Lily! Madeline called out, her voice strained in the shadows. But there was no immediate answer. What was happening? Was the chaos inside the diner merely a reflection of something deeper brewing outside? The billionaire stood motionless in the doorway, a statue carved from shadows. He seemed to catch the tense energy in the room, scanning faces, looking for signs of trouble or maybe a light in the darkness. Then, just like that, he stepped forward, the soles of his shoes clicking against the tile floor, disrupting the heavy silence. "Everyone, stay calm," he called, his voice smooth yet commanding. He turned, suddenly focused on Madeline. "Are you okay?" The sincerity in his eyes reached out to her across the darkened room. Madeline took a breath, feeling the warmth of his concern, something she hadn't expected. I'm fine," she stammered, her words struggling to break through the trepidation in the air. The room began to quiet as attention turned toward her. "Smart girl," he said, his words wrapping around her like a safety net. "Stay close to your friend." His gaze darted back to Lily, who was busy checking on a customer who had slid from their booth in the panic. The billionaire moved toward her, urgency in his stride. "What are you doing here?" Lily asked, brushing a stray hair from her face as she rose from tending to the fallen diner patron. You can't be here. It's dangerous. His voice shifted to urgency. We need to get everyone out. Something's not right tonight. The tension crackled again, like static before a storm. Outside, the engine of the limousine growled louder, its presence looming like a predator waiting to strike. And in that moment, Madeline's once flickering determination stirred anew. She wheeled herself closer, every sense heightened. Why is it dangerous? Madeline asked, her voice ringing out, surprising even herself. What's coming? The billionaire paused, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face, but he quickly masked it with confidence. Trust me, we need to act fast. The sinister rumblings from outside echoed in the diner walls, filling the air with dread. Suddenly, a crash, a loud bang reverberated through the diner, shaking the foundations. The front glass shattered, shards raining down like deadly raindrops. Panic erupted again, screams punctured the thick tension, and everyone scrambled for cover. Madeline's heart dropped. This was it, whatever was happening, it was here. Her breath caught in her throat. The limelight had left the diner, and now shadows danced menacingly all around them. Over here! Lily shouted, grabbing Madeline's wheelchair, her eyes frantic with fear yet blazing with fierce resolve. We have to move. Madeline's palms were clammy against her wheels, a storm of emotions swirling within her. Could she trust the billionaire? Could she trust anyone? As they maneuvered toward the back, the atmosphere electrified, a sense of urgency swelled like a tidal wave. But just as Madeline felt a whisper of hope, the door creaked, a shadow emerged, and the silhouette of a stranger appeared. Who were they? And what did they want? The unknown loomed, sending ripples of icy dread through the room. Would they escape? She thought of the possibilities, and in that moment, a choice hung heavy before her. The weight of fear and the promise of bravery collided. What would she do next? Madeline's heart raced as the shadow stepped fully into the light of the diner's flickering flashlights. The figure was a tall man, clad in dark clothing that blended with the chaos enveloping them. His eyes glinted with an unsettling mix of menace and curiosity, and as he took a step inside, the air thickened with dread. Who are you? The billionaire demanded, his voice now low and icy as he placed himself protectively in front of Madeline and Lily. Just trying to help, the stranger replied, a chilling smile creeping across his face. But you'll find it's a little too late for that. Madeline felt the blood drain from her face, a cold sweat forming on her palms. Would this be her last moment? Would fear claim her now, just as hope had begun to flicker? Get back! Lily shouted, pushing Madeline's wheelchair behind her. But the stranger advanced, his deliberate steps echoing unnaturally in the stunned silence that followed his brazen entrance. The sound of shattering glass still hung in the air, punctuated by shallow breaths and whispers of terror that spread through the diner like wildfire. Madeline's eyes darted around for any weapon, any semblance of safety, but all she saw were familiar faces, now warped with fear. Who would defend them? In the back of her mind, everything turned to that familiar question: what if she was too broken to do anything? Listen, the billionaire's voice cut through the panic as he stepped forward, wielding his influence like a shield. You have no business here. Whatever you're after, you won't find it with us. A tense silence enveloped the diner, the stranger's confident demeanor refusing to shatter under scrutiny. He finally laughed, a low, mocking sound that sent shivers racing down Madeline's spine. Ah, but it is too late for goodbyes, my friend, he purred, his smile unfurling predatorily. You see, I come to collect debts. Madeline's mind raced. Debts? What did he mean? A beat of realization drummed in her chest. Their casual conversations, the backroom dealings she overheard while working as a waitress. They owed something far more insidious than money. And now, it was all unraveling before her. Step aside, billionaire. I'll take what is owed, the stranger drawled, tilting his head as he surveyed Madeline with haunting interest. No. Lily shouted, anger igniting against fear. You have no authority here. The stranger's laughter escalated, echoing off the diner walls. It was a sound laced with madness, an omen of chaos yet to come. As the patrons began to murmur and crowd around the exit, Madeline felt the overwhelming weight of that suffocating urgency wrapped tighter around her. While you scramble for a way out, think about this, the stranger said, his voice dripping with menace. You have something I want and I don't plan on leaving without it. Madeline's mind spun. What could she possibly offer him? As panic threatened her composure, an unexpected surge of defiance blossomed within her. Get away from us! She shouted, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. For a moment, everything froze. The stranger's expression shifted, surprise cracking the facade of his arrogance. But that brief pause shattered when distant sirens began to wail, growing louder, and the floors trembled as the earth shook. Now it's time to play, he hissed, eyes narrowing, as the realization dawned on all of them, outside help might not be the answer they hoped for. Madeline clenched her fists, adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was her chance. She needed to act before it was too late. But could she confront this man? Run, Madeline said softly, urging the patrons clumped around her. Now. The choice made, and the first footstep echoed like a trumpet call in the din of chaos. Madeline risked a glance back at the billionaire, catching the flicker of something hopeful and fiercely determined in his eyes. Would they make it out? And what terrifying debts lurked in the shadows, waiting to be paid? The diner had become a battlefield, and Madeline was at its center. Madeline felt the adrenaline pounding in her chest like a drum, drowning out the sirens that screamed outside. Each hurried footstep from the patrons felt like a countdown. The stranger's eyes remained fixed on her, a predator surveying his prey. She was no longer just a waitress, now, she had become a symbol of defiance. Madeline! Lily cried, her voice rising above the panic. We need to move. With each moment that passed, the tension thickened, coiling tighter around them. Madeline's mind raced, sifting through fragmented thoughts. She needed a plan, she couldn't let fear dictate her fate. Suddenly, the stranger lunged toward the exit, cutting them off from potential escape. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she instinctively positioned herself between him and Madeline. Let her go! Lily screamed, fists clenched in defiance. Ah, the brave little lioness, the stranger mocked, his voice slick like oil. But bravery will only get you so far. He turned his gaze back to Madeline, a twisted excitement lighting up his eyes. Besides, I'm not here for you. Not yet, anyway. Just remember, every choice has its price. Madeline swallowed hard, her throat dry. She needed to stay calm. If she could just divert his attention, buy them a few precious seconds, maybe they could escape. What do you want from us? She asked, her voice steady, though her heart raced. The stranger leaned closer, his breath cold against her skin. Let us just say I've come to collect a favor, he said, the last words laced with malice. The murmur from the remaining patrons was drowned out by the hum of Madeline's racing thoughts. What favor? What had they unknowingly entangled themselves in? Forget your debts. The billionaire roared, stepping forward with renewed courage, his eyes ablaze with determination. You don't have to do this, just leave. Leave? The stranger laughed, a sound that thrummed with dark energy. I've come too far for that, and besides, this is just the beginning. Madeline stole a glance at Lily, who was gripping her arm. They needed to distract him further, the chaos was thickening. Can we just talk? Madeline said, raising her hands slightly, wanting to appear non-threatening. The stranger's eyes flickered, calculating. You think you can talk your way out of this? How quaint. And then, like a scene from a nightmare, the lights flickered ominously, plunging the diner into near darkness. Gasps erupted around them, panic rising anew. The taste of fear was palpable, thickening the air like fog. Get to the back. The billionaire shouted, his voice cutting through the murmur of shock. Now. Madeline's heart raced as she grabbed Lily's wheelchair and propelled herself backward, forcing the path as the stranger's shadow loomed closer. "Come on, Lily," she urged. The sound of her own voice steadied her resolve, but as they backed away, the stranger stepped triumphantly into the gloom, almost reveling in their fear. "You think you can run? You're trapped in here with me, there's no escape." The sirens outside swelled, a terrifying prelude to the approaching chaos, drowning every ounce of clarity in Madeline's mind. "Enough!" Lily shouted, using all the strength she had to rally those around her. "We can't let him win. We can fight." But in the flickering light, shadows danced, and assurance faded like the last colors of day. The stranger launched forward, and an electric jolt shot through Madeline's spine. "Maybe it's time to show you what I've truly come for," he said, reaching into his coat, a swift movement that sent screams echoing in rapid succession. Madeline couldn't just stand there. She had to do something, anything. Now. She screamed as the world spun out of control, but the words hung in the air like the weight of the moment. What could she sacrifice to save them all? She caught the reflection of pure terror in Lily's eyes, and that flicker of determination within the billionaire's, but as the stranger's intentions revealed themselves in one swift motion, they all braced for a reality that promised no mercy. Would fate give Madeline a chance to reclaim what was taken? Time was slipping away, and choices ran thin. The moment of truth was about to strike. As the stranger made his move, a piercing shriek sliced through the air. Madeline's heart thundered in her chest, the beat drowning out the chaos around them. She watched in horrified fascination as the stranger pulled out a glinting object from his coat. It reflected the meager light, casting erratic shadows that danced ominously across the wall, the unmistakable outline of a knife. "Lily!" Madeline shouted, pushing the wheelchair backward with fierce determination, her palms slick with sweat. She had to protect her best friend. The stranger advanced, a sinister grin plastered on his face. "Such sweet dedication. Yet, how foolish you are to think you can escape." His voice was a chilling whisper, filled with confidence. Madeline stood frozen, her instincts battling each other. She needed to buy them time. "What do you really want?" she shouted again, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "Is this about a favor? Just talk to us." His smile widened, revealing a set of teeth that glinted like knives themselves. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. You're in my web now. Any moment can turn deadly." The diner's patrons were frozen in place, eyes wide with fear. One woman clutched a child close, shielding the small figure with her body. The billionaire stood tall, fists clenched, waiting for the right moment to act. "Madeline, let us get out of here," Lily urged, her voice steady despite the terror etched in her face. The wheelchair rammed against the wall, the back exit was too far away. But before they could retreat any further, the lights flickered again, and the stranger laughed, a cruel, mirthless sound. "You think you can hide? There's nowhere to run." Suddenly, the tension surged. The billionaire lunged forward, his unexpected movement catching the stranger's focus. "Get away from them!" he shouted, a protective fire burning in his eyes. "Bold, aren't we?" the stranger taunted, turning his attention away from Madeline. "But it's a game you can't win. I want you all to witness the price of interference." He turned, reaching back towards Madeline. Without thinking, Madeline gripped the first thing she could, a heavy metal tray from the counter, and raised it as a shield, her body trembling with adrenaline. "Stay back!" Her voice rang out, embodying every ounce of bravery she could muster. In this moment, fear and courage intertwined, a stark dance as she stood tall against the very embodiment of their nightmare. The tray felt heavy in her hands, but it also felt like a lifeline, grounding her amidst the turmoil. "No more games," the stranger hissed, anger flashing across his face as the diner's lights buzzed erratically. "Now, let us see how far you'll go to protect your little friend." As he lunged again, Madeline's instincts kicked in. She swung the tray with all her might, aiming for his head. The metal clanged against his shoulder, throwing him off balance, a momentary victory, but not enough. He stumbled back, snarling, his knife glimmering dangerously as it dropped from his grasp. "You think you can stop me?" he growled, eyes flickering with fury. Madeline's mind raced. They were so close to being free, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something darker loomed ahead. This was just the beginning, and the true fight was still to come. "Lily, let us go," she yelled, urgency lacing her voice as she turned back to her friend, only to find the wheelchair rolling away. Chaos erupted around them as the billionaire struggled to round up the frightened patrons to help. Screams mingled with the outside sirens, each noise a deafening reminder of how precarious their situation had become. Madeline lunged for Lily, desperate to get her back to safety when suddenly, the stranger sprang forward again, but this time, he wasn't alone. Shadows flared in the opening behind him, dark figures blending into the chaos. Madeline froze, the realization crashing over her like a tidal wave. They weren't alone in this fight they hadn't even signed up for. Just how deep did this darkness run? Who were these new figures emerging from the shadows? Madeline's breath hitched as her eyes met Lily's wide gaze. The game was far from over, and the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. "Madeline," Lily whispered, a tremor in her voice. "What now?" The fight for their lives was only just beginning. Madeline's heart raced, each beat echoing the raw terror coursing through her veins. The shadows emerging from the back were growing bolder, their outlines flickering like nightmares fueled by fear. Panic surged as she grasped Lily's wheelchair, pulling it closer, ready to shield her friend at all costs. "What are they doing?" Lily murmured, her voice quaking as she tried to rise. "We have to get out. We can't stay here." But Madeline was paralyzed, an unseen weight anchoring her feet to the floor. The stranger's angry growl cut through the air, commanding attention. "You think this is a game, don't you? You'll see." With a fierce scream, he lunged toward them again, but now the shadows flared to life, chaotic shapes darting around him. They weren't here to help. She could feel that intuitively, an instinct deep within her, like an icy thumb pressing against her spine. Then, with blinding speed, one of the figures rushed forward, attacking the stranger as he turned in disbelief. The knife slipped from his fingers, clattering to the ground. The grip of the newcomer was determined, a flurry of movement that pushed him back. Hope ignited in Madeline's chest, but it was quickly doused by the thought, who were they? "Billionaire, get your people out," the new fighter shouted, voice sharp with urgency. "We need to contain this." The billionaire sprung into action, shouting commands as he gathered the frightened patrons, urging them to move toward the main entrance. The clamor drowned out Madeline's thoughts, but one thing was clear: it was now or never. They couldn't wait any longer. "Madeline!" Lily's desperate voice broke through the chaos, pulling Madeline's focus back to her friend, the wheelchair wobbling perilously close to the edge of a table. "We need to go. Now." Madeline gritted her teeth, a wild courage taking hold. She couldn't leave Lily. Not now. Not ever. "Grab the wheels," she shouted. "I'll help you." With trembling hands, she pushed the wheelchair as the fight raged behind them. The stranger was now on the defensive, panicked but still lethal as he engaged with the mysterious figure. For a moment, their struggle felt surreal, like watching a scene play out in a movie rather than her own life. "Keep moving," the fighter yelled again, grappling the stranger, throwing him into a booth as the diner erupted into a symphony of screams and shattering glass. Madeline leaned in, pushing Lily's wheelchair with everything she had. The back entrance loomed closer, but it was still too far. The chaos spilled around them, the energy electric with fear. They had to escape this nightmare. Just as they rounded a corner, a loud crash erupted. A metal chair flew into the air, narrowly missing them. Madeline gasped, heart racing, eyes wide. "They're coming for us. Faster," Lily urged, her hands gripping the armrests tightly. Madeline's breath came in quick, panicked bursts as she pushed harder. With every ounce of strength, she propelled Lily's chair forward. The flickering lights dimmed, threatening to plunge them into darkness as they neared the exit. Suddenly, the stranger regained his footing, eyes flashing with rage as he spotted them. "You won't escape!" he roared, lunging once more, but the mysterious fighter intercepted him, throwing punches that snapped through the air. Madeline barely glanced back. Her focus was on the door, the desperate need for freedom igniting a fierce fire within her. As they neared the exit, the cacophony of chaos shrieked in her ears, fueling her determination. "Just a little further!" she yelled, panic slicing through her resolve. Then, just a heartbeat away from freedom, the ground shifted beneath her. A shadow leaped in front of them, one of the dark figures, blocking their path. Madeline skidded to a halt, heart slamming against her ribs. The figure smirked, eyes glinting dangerously under the sparse light. "Did you really think you could just walk away?" Madeline's breath caught in her throat, and her pulse raced anew. There was nowhere left to run. What twisted game had they stumbled into? "Madeline!" Lily cried, fear straining her voice. The figure stepped closer, blocking their escape route. They were trapped in the diner, in a nightmare made flesh, and it felt like the beginning of something dark and unimaginable. What would they do now, with death poised at their heels? Madeline's heart thundered in her chest, every beat growing louder as the figure advanced. The smirk deepened, reflecting a sense of triumph that spiraled her into cold dread. "What do you think you're doing here? This isn't your playground." Lily's voice trembled. "We need to go, Madeline. Please." Madeline sucked in a breath, desperately scanning their surroundings, running through options in her mind. The din of chaos mingled with the rising panic, drowning out rational thought. They were trapped. The shadowy figure stood every bit like a sentry, filled with malice. "You think you can save her?" the figure taunted, gesturing dismissively at Lily. "All that lingers beyond this moment is a taste of fear and hopelessness." Madeline couldn't breathe. She could feel the weight of those unsettling words pressing down on her. Lily's grip tightened on her armrest, muscles taut with fear. "Listen!" someone shouted from deeper inside the diner, a sharp voice cutting through the ambient chaos. "Get them out of here!" Madeline's attention flickered as the mystery fighter continued to clash with the stranger. Caught in a brutal dance, each blow rang out, echoing throughout the diner. The figure blocking their way waved a hand, baffling Madeline. "You might want to reconsider. This isn't a fairy tale, my dear. You can just sit there and watch the show, or well, make your choice." Madeline's legs felt rooted. What were they going to do? Fear and desperation fired her resolve for just a second. "Lily, if we can just get past him." Lily squeaked. "We've got to move now." Madeline stared at the figure. If she could just find a way past him. Bracing herself, she gave a sharp tug on Lily's wheelchair, edging around to get a better angle. The figure laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "You really think you can outsmart me?" Madeline's gut sank as the stranger rejoined the fray, snarling at the chaos. Yet, in a split second of madness, Madeline spotted a path, behind the bar. A narrow space, obscured in darkness, led straight to the diner's back exit. "Do you trust me?" Madeline asked, voice low and trembling. "More than anything," Lily replied, sincerity weaving through the fear. With grit fueling her muscles, Madeline steered the wheelchair toward the narrow gap, her heart hammering violently against her ribs. As they approached, the shadows danced ominously, and the figure swiftly turned, sensing their movement. "Stop!" he yelled, launching himself forward. Madeline pushed with all her might, propelling Lily's chair faster toward the opening. The figure lunged, arms outstretched, but she ducked into the alcove, feeling a rush of air slip from her lungs. "Go! Go!" shouted the fighter from behind, still engaged with the stranger. With one fierce push, Madeline whipped the wheelchair toward the exit. It was a leap of faith. The moment they burst through the back door, the world morphed. It was chaos, bright lights and blaring horns meeting them in a maelstrom outside. Quick, quick! Lily urged, as Madeline yanked the wheelchair outside into the cold night. Madeline's breath fogged in the air as they darted across an empty alley, heart racing with the weight of their escape. They skidded to a halt, gasping for air as the diner's tumult faded into the distance. But their freedom was momentary, shadows from the diner's chaos still flickering in the corner of her gaze. "We have to keep moving," Madeline insisted, a new determination rising in her. Yet, as they turned the corner, she felt it an all-consuming weight, the sensation of eyes watching them from deeper in the shadows. "What now?" Lily whispered, a tremor of uncertainty in her voice. Madeline glanced behind them, dread knotting her stomach. "I don't know, but something tells me this is only the beginning." And just then, a chilling sound echoed through the air, a sound that echoed the darkness they both feared the most. What sinister force was still hunting them? The alley loomed ahead like a dark labyrinth, its shadows deepening at every corner. Madeline could feel the pulse of fear clawing at her throat. They had escaped one nightmare, but a fresh dread stirred. What if the nightmare was far from over? "Keep moving," she said, voice barely more than a whisper. Lily nodded, but her wide eyes betrayed her fear, their shadows highlighted by the dim light from a flickering street lamp. Madeline pushed Lily's wheelchair further into the mouth of the alley, wheeling past the litter and shadows clinging to the walls. Each echo of their presence seemed to invite the darkness closer, as if something unseen trailed behind them. The heavy air thickened with uncertainty. What had they really escaped? Her mind raced. Was the figure still back there, watching? She couldn't shake the feeling that they had not slipped away unnoticed. Suddenly, a crashing sound reverberated through the alley, followed by frantic shouts. She spun around in alarm, helplessly searching the shadows. The fight was still raging, but it was closing in on them. "Let us find a safe place," Madeline urged, fear igniting urgency. She pushed the wheelchair hard, weaving through the alley like a panicked hare. "Over there!" Lily shouted, pointing with a trembling finger toward a thick metal door partially concealed by boxes. It looked like a loading dock, a flimsy sanctuary amidst the chaos outside. Madeline grunted as she thrust the chair toward the door, dread building in her chest. "Come on, we can make it." With every inch, the air felt heavier, suffocating them with the weight of uncertainty. They reached the door just as a loud crash reverberated from the alley behind them. Madeline gripped the handle, her palms slick with sweat. "Is it locked?" Lily asked, her voice trembling with barely contained fear. The handle turned, and the door creaked open just enough for them to slip inside. It smelled of oil and dust, the dim interior offering little comfort. They quickly pushed into the room, quieting their breaths like a pair of hunted animals. "What is this place?" Lily wondered aloud, glancing nervously around the stark, empty room. Madeline's eyes darted across the walls. It was filled with old crates and packing materials, but there was something even deeper looming. She could feel it. Shadows shifted at the edges of her vision, and just like that, a thunderous crash sounded from outside, rattling the door. "Stay quiet," Madeline hissed, slowing their breaths, straining to listen. The commotion had escalated, angry shouts and crashing sounds mixed with the thundering heartbeats pounding in her ears. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of movement outside a grimy window. A shadow darted past, then halted. Her heart froze. It was too close. "What is happening?" Lily whispered, eyes wide, clutching the armrests of her chair. Madeline pressed a finger to her lips, fearful words crashing against the uncomfortable silence. She stood rooted, peering through the filmy glass, every instinct screaming to flee. Through the haze, she saw the figure from the diner. He was pacing, his sharp silhouette betraying an eerie calm. "You think you can run?" He bellowed into the night, his voice piercing through the stillness, as if he could sense them hiding. "You will regret this." The realization hit Madeline like a punch to the gut. They weren't safe, not yet. "What do we do?" Lily's voice quivered, breaking through Madeline's daze. Madeline clenched her fists. "We wait," she said, though uncertainty tainted her words. She could feel the pressure in the pit of her stomach, tightening like a vice. "But we won't go down easily." Outside, the figure's gaze intensified, like a predator honing in on its prey. The shadows seemed to warp around him, swirling dark tendrils that crawled through her mind. "Madeline," Lily urged, fear gripping her voice once more. "What if he finds us?" "Then we'll fight," Madeline said, though the tremor in her voice belied her confidence. She had to believe. As the tension coiled tighter, the air grew thick as they held their breaths waiting for the inevitable explosion of the chaos outside. Just then, a loud crack echoed, and the door beneath them rattled ominously. "What was that?" Lily gasped, eyes wide with terror. Madeline knew one thing: whatever was coming, they had to face it together. Yet doubt clawed at her as the door shuddered once more, straining against the weight of impending darkness. "Brace yourself," Madeline said, her heart racing before they faced whatever horror awaited them. Would they make it through this descent into madness? Or had they merely entered another layer of the nightmare? The door shuddered again, this time with more force, rattling in its hinges as if something or someone was trying to force entry. Madeline's breath hitched, her heart racing faster, a wild drumbeat in her ears. "Madeline!" Lily's voice cracked, her knuckles white as she gripped the armrests like they were her only lifeline. I know," Madeline whispered, pressing her back against the wall, trying to blend into the shadows. The room felt like it was closing in on them as she looked at the flimsy door, the only barrier separating them from what lurked beyond. With a rapid glance around, Madeline's mind raced. They needed a plan, something to buy them time until the chaos outside faded, or until an opening appeared. She spotted a stack of crates nearby. The narrow space between them might provide a temporary sanctuary. "Lily, let's move," Madeline urged, gripping the wheels of the chair. "I'm going to push you toward those crates." Lily nodded, her eyes glistening with a mix of fear and hope. Madeline wheeled her chair with all the force she could muster, scraping past the crates, the metal making a loud screech that felt too loud in the deafening air. They hid behind the boxes, squeezing into a corner, praying to fade into the nothingness. "Do you think he saw us?" Lily whispered, her voice wavering. I don't know," Madeline admitted, breath hitching. The thuds outside continued, a wild symphony of movement and rage that seemed to wrap around them like a noose. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed, something breaking through the street-level door. Madeline's heart dropped. He's getting closer. Just then, the door they had entered swung violently open, slamming against the wall. The dim light from the street seeped in, illuminating the dark intent in the figure's eyes. "Where are you?" His voice was low, dangerous, echoing through the empty room. The darkness behind him seemed to cling like a cloak, following him as he stepped inside. Madeline's breath stalled. "Don't move!" she shouted, the words spilling out before she thought. She didn't know where the bravery had come from, but it surged within her, sharpened by desperation. "Brave girl," he chuckled, the sound a mix of amusement and menace. "You think you can scare me?" Madeline didn't respond. Her mind raced with thoughts of escape, of protecting Lily at all costs. She wanted to run, to fight, but she felt frozen, a statue ensnared in a nightmare. "What about your friend?" He pointed, his pale hand gesturing toward Lily, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. "That wouldn't be a pretty sight, would it?" Madeline's heart shattered at the implication, her chest tightening with the weight of horror. Leave her alone. The moment hung in the air, thick with anticipation. The figure was still and posed, a predator taking stock of its prey. And in that silent, tense moment, something flickered in Madeline. An impromptu plan struck her like lightning. "Lily, can you grab the handle of that door?" Madeline whispered urgently. "What? No. Don't." Lily protested, but the spark of desperation ignited in Madeline again. "Trust me," she said, her voice fierce yet filled with terror. On three, she breathed. 1, 2, 3. Madeline rushed onto the figure, distracting him as Lily reached for the handle, clasping it tightly. The figure turned, shocked, and with a force that belied her size, Madeline lunged for him, pushing against his chest, her adrenaline igniting. "What the hell?" he barked, stumbling back. Lily cried out, dragging the door open wide, the gust of outside air flooding into the room like a burst of hope. "Run!" Madeline shouted, shoving him aside, and they erupted into the chaos outside, but just as they broke free, the night exploded in shouts and screams, drawing the attention of others. Shadows loomed around them, and the figure's eyes glinted like a beast hungry for revenge. Madeline ran, pushing Lily's wheelchair faster than she ever thought possible. The alley now twisted into a blur of shadows and lights, the danger a pulse behind them. "Keep going," Madeline urged, as they raced forward, fear propelling them, but the echoes of footsteps behind them grew louder, growing closer, a relentless pursuit that fueled the darkness swelling in their wake. They had escaped one nightmare, but as they turned a corner, they could already sense another wave rising, another layer of dread they hadn't anticipated. "Madeline, where do we go now?" Lily's voice trembled, raw with panic. In that moment, uncertainty filled the air once more, but Madeline knew one thing for sure: the next choice would either be a moment of bravery or a desperate mistake. As they rounded a corner, a new sound pierced through a low growl voiced by something more sinister than they could imagine. "What is that?" Madeline gasped, heart pounding against her ribs as the sinister shadow approached. And in that instant, both girls looked at each other, realizing the nightmare was just beginning. Madeline's heart pounded as she and Lily raced away, breathless, desperate to put distance between themselves and the chaos unfurling behind them. The alley twisted like a snake, dark corners looming larger than life. They pressed on, the air thick with fear, but they couldn't stop. "Not now." "Where do we go?" Lily whispered breathlessly, urgently. The shadows danced around them, every flicker feeling like a threat. Madeline spotted a sliver of light at the end of the alley. "That way!" she shouted, pushing her friend's wheelchair harder, adrenaline overwhelming her exhaustion. Each stride grew heavier, but hope ignited within her heart. They could escape this. They burst into the open street, greeted by chaotic sounds of sirens and distant shouts. A city once filled with life now felt eerie, as if the world was holding its breath. They needed safety, somewhere to regroup and plan their next move. Through the haze, a shelter stood just ahead, the local community center, its glow beckoning them like a lighthouse. Together, they raced towards it, determined and fueled by instinct. "Come on," Madeline urged, heart racing as they reached the doors. She yanked them open, and they dashed inside, just as a sharp scream chased them from the alley. Inside, the atmosphere felt both inviting and starkly alive with the thrum of people. Madeline's breath came in heavy gasps. "We need to find someone," she said, scanning the large room filled with community members setting up for an event. "Help. Please," Lily yelled, her voice trembling but loud enough to pierce through the chaos. A few heads turned, startled, eyes darting to the two girls. Their fear was palpable, but so was Madeline's courage. "We need help. There's a man, he's dangerous," she blurted, as dozens of eyes focused on them, some with concern, others with confusion. A tall woman stepped forward. "What is going on?" "You're safe here." Madeline felt a rush of gratitude. There was a stranger at the diner. A fight, words tumbled out, frantic and disjointed as she tried to explain the impossible night they faced. "We can't stay here," Lily pressed, hands trembling. The woman's expression shifted. "Hold on. I'm calling the police." She rushed toward a phone, and Madeline felt relief wash over her. Help was coming, maybe they were finally safe, but as the minutes dragged, the sense of safety turned to unease. The door was still open, and the fevered shouts outside grew louder. The potentially deadly shadows could follow them here. Just then, a crashing sound echoed outside, pulling their attention. Madeline. Lily's eyes widened with pure terror. Madeline spun around, spine tingling as she realized the atmosphere shifted. Stay back. She shouted, stepping protectively in front of Lily. Then they appeared, the familiar dark figures creeping in just at the edge of sight. The ominous figure from the diner, joined by another. The hairs on Madeline's neck stood tall. The community members gasped, whispers rose, but Madeline felt her heart harden. It was time to be brave. Move! She yelled, pushing Lily's wheelchair as she turned to face the intruders. The tall figure, the same one from the diner, stepped confidently into the building, a twisted smile creeping across his face. You didn't think you could escape that easily, did you? His voice dripped with malevolence, cutting through the air like a knife. Madeline clenched her fists. You won't hurt anyone here. The community members backed away, their faces pale with fear. But Madeline couldn't let fear take hold. She felt a swirl of energy powerful and raw gather around her as she refused to bow to this darkness. Everyone, stay together. She commanded, her voice ringing strong and clear. With the police sirens echoing closer, Madeline darted to the front of the crowd, directly confronting the figure. You'll have to go through me before you touch anyone here. A shocked silence fell, the figure's smile faded, replaced by a flash of anger. You think you're brave, but you'll regret this. Suddenly, the tension snapped like a rubber band. The mood transformed, the community members rallying behind Madeline, unified. Encouraged by her strength, they began to step forward, forming a protective circle around her and Lily. Go, girl! Someone shouted from the back, rallying those frozen by fear. We stand with you. Madeline felt a rush of strength as more voices joined. Together, they were ready to fight whatever darkness threatened them. She turned to Lily, her fear wavering against budding hope. We're not alone anymore. As the adrenaline surged, Madeline could sense the shadows creeping closer but felt determined to protect Lily and everyone around her. We will stand our ground. The figure closed in, and Madeline readied herself, the weight of the moment billowing around her. Then, it happened, a deafening crash as police burst through the doors just as the figures advanced. Police! Everyone stay back! Shouted a commanding voice. Madeline couldn't believe it, they had made it. Instinctively, her heart surged with relief as the figures recoiled. The community erupted in cheers, relieved that help had arrived just in time. Madeline grasped Lily's hand, their fortitude unbroken. They had made it together through the night's nightmare. As the police began to secure the situation, Madeline felt a flood of gratitude wash over her, a promise she'd make quietly but firmly. Never would she underestimate her strength or the power of those standing beside her. With smiles breaking through their fears, Madeline and Lily exchanged a glance, knowing the night would be one to remember, a life-changing moment in the face of darkness. Now, as they ventured out into a new dawn, courage bubbling within them, the whispers of the past would linger only as long as it took to forge the path ahead. So, what's next for you? Are you ready to turn the page to more exciting adventures? You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, flood the comments section with your reactions. What did you think of tonight's journey? And for goodness sake, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this breathtaking conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Your voice matters, and together, we can fight every shadow that comes our way.